Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Navis Nobilite. Today, we are having a very special episode of this YouTube blog, whatever you want to call it, because today I am going to be interviewing Danny Cyanide and John the Warlock of none other than Soulforge Studios, the one small company that has come together and completely revolutionized modern Battlefield Gothic. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on here and being willing to let me interview you.
No problem.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So we're going to get right into a lot of the burning questions. A lot of these are ones that have been sent to me by people. The first question that I have for you is, how did you get into Battlefield Gothic, and why is Battlefield Gothic so interesting to you?
Well, I'll start this one off. Back 2.5 years ago, I was a fairly new 3D modeler, and I got offered the opportunity to do a guest spot with the makers called Patreon, where I would make up some models for a monthly release for them, and they'd kind of put them out there and expose me to the community a little bit more. And I was trying to think of something really special to do and something unique, something different that wasn't already out there. I didn't want to make another Space Marine or anything like that. And it hit me. It'd be really cool if I could do a basically a starter set for a game. So I started thinking about games that weren't really well supported 3D wise or supported with more of an FDM kind of technology in mind. And I settled on Battlefield Gothic. And I decided I'd do a basic starter fleet for both Imperial Navy and Orcs. And I did one cruiser for each and one escort class ship for each, along with some torpedo markers and other little game bits, and that was my guest spot release, and it went over really well. It was really well received. People really reacted positively to it, and I started thinking about maybe it'd be something worth pursuing a little more actively than just a little guest spot thing. So yeah, I started making more ships, and somehow along the line, I noticed John had posted a work in progress picture of a really cool looking ship. Um, he'd been modeling a version of McCragg's Honor, and I was like, dude, this is my kindred spirit. So I messaged him up and asked him if he'd be interested in kind of working on a project together. And seeing where it took us. And 2 years later, we're still here making tiny spaceships for people and loving almost every minute of it.
John, how did you get into Battlefield Gothic?
Well, when I was a young boy,
Back when dinosaurs
so
rode the earth?
when dinosaurs still made the earth tremble, I remember I started into the world of Warhammer when War Master made its debut, and I was
Wow.
in an FLGS, and I went in specifically to pick up War Master because a friend of mine had told me all about it. And sitting next to the War Master starter sets was Battlefleet Gothic. So on that day, I chose not to pick up the tiny spaceships because I had a friend ready to play War Master. But I always picked up, and played with all the models that I could get my hands on because tiny spaceships. And I forgot about it for a while, like everybody else left the hobby. When I got back into it, I was looking at some of the art for the ships, and I was like, whatever happened to that spaceship game? What was it called? And I Google foo and found Battlefleet Gothic, and lo and behold, like all of the great games, it was no longer supported.
Thanks,
So
Games
I began,
Workshop.
yeah, started looking for. I had just started 3D printing because of the Maker's Cult, and I had a little FDM printer, and I'd found the ships from Italian Moose and Make Hand, and so I was like, well, this is really cool, but I have a 3D printer. I want to make my own toys. So I started with Tinkercad, making some spaceships. And when I saw Danny was making spaceships, I was still very new to 3D modeling and didn't know anybody. So I was surprising that I even shared a work in progress. I remember stepping away from my keyboard and just squeeing out loud when Danny actually messaged me, and oh my God, somebody thinks I'm doing good stuff. And
Hey, Danny, we're hearing a little bit of stuff in the background of what you're doing, just so you know.
Sorry, I'll try and sit still.
Okay.
So yeah, he invited me to play in his sandbox, and it led to me getting a resin printer and making a Space Marine fleet and actually playing a few games with my family.
Okay. So, for both of you, we're getting some echo. Danny, could you put yourself on push to talk?
I'm pretty technologically impaired. I am not sure how to do that.
You can go to the user settings and voice, and oh, you muted yourself. I guess that works. Okay. The next question I'm going to have is I'll start, I guess, with John the Warlock. What was your very first Battlefleet Gothic fleet?
Oh, it had to be what I call the interstellar jarheads, the scout troops in the sky. They're the ships spoke to me. One of the first ships I printed ever before I started making them myself was an Italian Moose battle barge, and I remember holding it in my hand, going, "This is a machine of war." It was just spectacular.
I'm going to
And
have
then I
to
made my
tell
own.
Moose you said that.
Yeah, it was great. I loved it.
Okay,
And it
Danny, what?
printed
Oh.
so well in FDM. I was impressed.
While we're on the topic of Italian Moose, I think both John and I were really inspired by the work that he and McCand had already done 3D wise for Battlefleet Gothic. Both of those creators, without them, I don't know if either of us would be here right now, to be honest.
So it's all their fault. Gotcha.
Yep.
So the next question that I have for you comes from one of the members of the Discord server, and they're asking if you're going to be doing any of the League of Votan / Demiurge ships in the future.
Space dwarves. I personally have thought about what that would look like. I'm getting to a point in my modeling where I'm trying to express myself more, and that's one of those fleets that is so different from the other ones. They're just very alien looking for a race that's supposed to be descended from humans. So it's a possibility. There are a few things we want to take care of first, but it's not off the table.
Oh, I'm sure
Yeah,
that's going to make a lot of people happy. You should also know that they're getting new ships in Book of the Void 2, so you should be excited about that as well.
awesome.
All right. When you're making these new versions of these ships, what inspires you to move in the directions that you do? So what you guys don't see is that I have a gallery of images that are from your guys' miniature website. And it's just scrolling through several of these ships, and while they're very obviously from the fleets that they're meant to be, right? You've taken a lot of artistic liberty, and I want to know where that inspiration comes from, if I may ask.
I think that depends a lot on which fleet you're talking about. For our human navy line, I really leaned into Gothic architecture. Looking at old Gothic churches, old Gothic buildings that are still existing in Europe. And I really, really leaned into that design style for most of my human navy and for a lot of the Gloriana ships as well. I've really leaned into that styling, which I mean goes back to basic 40K world design, right? I mean, all of the great artwork from early times in 40K. It's so gothic. It's so over the top, and it's so ostentatious. And it was something that I realized that really wasn't possible to do until the manufacturing technology of 3D printing and resin became reality. I mean, you can't make crazy gothic spires with tiny itty bitty flying buttresses in injection mold plastic. Um, you couldn't do them even on FDM printers to the level that I like to do them. Um, but resin printing opened up the opportunity to push that so much further over the top than had ever been possible before. And then with my orc fleet, which was the next fleet I did, our Greenskins line.
I have an
Um,
entire fleet of them ready and waiting to be built, but it's a little hard to tell how they're supposed to go together because they look like an orc junk fleet even when they're unassembled.
well, there's no wrong way to put them together. Basically, if you can make the parts fit, they fit. um, that's
That's
one of
going
the
to
nice
result
things.
in an incredible disaster. I'm going to quote you on that when I finally have to paint them.
I think it would be really good if everyone just kind of realized that with the orc ships, just stick pieces together and make some cool stuff. Um, Especially with an unsupported game, I think that it's use your creativity when you're putting this stuff together. Don't just follow the stat blocks in the books. Make cool ships that just look cool and figure out what to do with them with your buddies later.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so much more fun that way. And the orc line, especially the greenskins fleet, that was my motivation. I just wanted to make stuff that looked like piles of garbage stuck back together. Um, and I had so much fun doing it.
You still need to make the eat at Gork sign.
Yeah,
Eat
I
it,
do.
Gork.
Yes.
For reference to the audience who may be listening, when Danny was getting ready and making the Orc Hulk, I quietly requested a little piece of ridiculous headcanon, which was an Orc Hulk that had a giant neon sign that said "Eat at Borks." And it would be the galaxy's most horrifying interstellar diner of all, and he still hasn't made it. So for that, I curse you, sir, for not having made my dream ship. Uh,
If only there were 30 hours in the day.
yeah, no kidding. All right. I guess the next question that I have for you is related to the concept of 3D printing. Obviously, you guys have a lot of knowledge in 3D printing and the domains of 3D printing. Where can people go to learn?
Oh goodness, that's a very good question. I was recently interviewed by a grad school student who asked me that same question. He was doing a dissertation on hobby 3D printing, and honestly, there's when I was getting into it, there's really not a lot of mainstream um, mainstream sources for that sort of thing. Everything that I learned, every question that I had about 3D printing came from the answers all came from Discord. To be honest with you, there I found a great community and more people willing to help. So I know right now, Elegoo, Anycubic, Chidubox, they all have Discords, but find a community. Um, we have one. People ask questions all the time. There's always a channel. for help, to ask questions like, "Hey guys, I want to learn how to 3D printing. What kind of printers do you have? What are the pros and cons?" Just the communities. Get into a community if you're interested in printing D&D minis. Get in a D&D Discord. I guarantee you they'll have a 3D printing section. That's where your best knowledge, the tribal knowledge, is best. You can read the manufacturer's website. You can go to, what was it, Simplify 3D has a website to help you troubleshoot your prints, but nobody wants to just run through a checklist. You want to be able to say, "Hey guys, I've upped my exposure or my filament temperature, and I'm still getting these errors." So I'd say community is the best way to do it. Embed yourself in a community and ask the questions.
For the information for the viewer, the Soulforge Studios Discord channel will have a invite link in the description below if you want to go and ask them questions until their ears fall off.
Yes.
It's definitely not only for patrons. It is a full-fledged, anyone's welcome 3D printing spaceships community. You don't have to be a Soulforge patron. Anyone that has any kind of interest in this crazy little hobby is more than welcome.
Mm-hmm.
So the next question I have is from Alwar from the Navis Nobilite Discord server. And he asks, do you have any plans when you finish all of the fleets?
I think we have some. I don't
We
know
have
how
some.
solid. I don't know how solid any of them are. I know that I would love to go back and revisit some of my oldest designs,
Mm-hmm.
and give them a facelift. I mean, when we first started 2 years ago, the stuff that we were putting out was not to sound like a cocky ass, but it was the most detailed, highest fidelity available at the time. But in those 2 years, technology has moved forward so much, and both John and I have grown as artists. And I look at some of those older designs, and there's lots of things I'd like to do differently now. So with a universe like 40K, I think that it opens up the possibilities of going back and revisiting designs, because there's so much variety in the background and in the fluff. No two ships are the same. They're all unique relics of the dark age of technology, and like it's definitely one route that we have talked about going down after we've kind of wrapped up the first pass of everything.
Gotcha.
Definitely
And
a second pass is. I've already begun doing that with the quote unquote jarhead fleets. I just got a wild hair one day to revisit, so it went out as a bonus. So many cool ideas, so many ideas from the members. Unique ships can be made, one-offs. We do. It's it's an inside joke about the number of parts that usually come with a kit. Something as small as a little cruiser. We'll have. I did a kit for the a new strike cruiser. We call them attack cruisers. That's 70 pieces.
70
That's
pieces.
70 pieces.
For a
There were
strike
70.
cruiser, a teeny little light cruiser, you have 70 pieces?
Prows, weapons,
We
even the
really like
rear wings.
My
we
goodness.
really like to have bonus parts and modularity in our builds, because again, like I said, there's not supposed to be two ships that are the same.
70. I'm sorry, my mind is just blown by the fact that you made 70 different individual swappable bits for a strike cruiser.
hmm Well, like Danny said, the technology has gotten to the point. I've stress tested my printers to the point of they'll cry when I bring certain things over. I made a transport pack, and the transport modules were modular, and the little transports were maybe 3.5 centimeters long,
Oh,
but they had
Jesus.
modular cargo containers. So yeah.
Oh, my goodness. All right. I have another question from the Navis Nobilite server. From Johnny Turbo, will you be making any ships from the Book of the Void or the Book of the Void series?
I have begun digging through that book. It was a mention when I was polling the Discord the other day for bonus ships or extra ships to make in a month, and someone asked about, well, how about Book of the Void? So I have begun thumbing through the pages looking for what will inspire me to craft a new special ship.
So, for reference to the listeners, Book of the Void is a fan made book that was designed solely by the fan base of Battlefleet Gothic. It was released to the public, I believe, late last year, and it debuts the fleets of the Diasporix Alliance, the Sisters of Battle, and the Grot Rebellion. So, if you are interested, there will be a link in description as well.
I have already done a Grot Rebellion prow for some of our greenskin ships, and I can definitely see myself wanting to do some Sisters of Battleships down the road. Again, I'm such a fan of messing around with Gothic architecture and the design structures you find in churches and chapels, and I just think they'd be a really fun fleet to kind of let myself loose on.
Well, if that were the case, you should know that there are two ships that were more partially due to time constraints. We wanted to get the book released, but also because we wanted the player base to really be able to customize these ships. Two vessels never had defined ships in the fleet that for the book. They were, blacked out and classified, but they were the grand cruisers of the fleet. So one in the style of the Repulsive and the other in the style of the Vengeance. So you have a lot of stuff to work with when it comes to that.
I think taking a Repulsive and really leaning into the Gothic thing would be a lot of fun. I could see that being a project I'd really throw myself into down the road.
There are going to be a lot of Sisters of Battle fans are going to be really happy to hear that. So, what's next on the plate for Soulforge Studios? What are you guys in the works and making now, if you can tell us?
I'm currently putting finishing touches on our final of the original 18 Glorianas, the Spirit of Vengeance, I guess we'll go with for a name.
Mm.
And I'm planning. I'm working on a Hungry Bugs hive ship, and then after that, I plan to start releasing some diseased bits for our Anarchist Jarheads line. Basically, Nurgle stuff for our Chaos Space Marines ships.
Oh, that's going to make people happy. What are you working on, John the Warlock?
Well, the on my plate right now, I've got the pirate elves working on their cruisers, their big multi-part kits, and as of I think early this morning, I had a 3-day poll, as I mentioned earlier, for this month's giant, we call them glory class spaceships, and I will be putting together uh, a rowboat-sized generic for any Jarhead fleet glory class vessel. It will be multi-part with options. I'm really looking forward to that.
Oh, those sound amazing. Of course, it means that me and Griftifer have a lot of work to do making rules for all of these ships you keep making. Thanks. So,
Yeah, I'm aiming to make as much work for everyone as possible.
yeah, just growing all of our painting walls of shame at the same time, I'm sure. All right, I guess the final series of questions are going to be coming from me. First things first, I have a new mini series on my YouTube channel called Fleet Engagement, where I battle people in the community on video in a course of 2 to 3 games. Are either of you willing to come on and potentially, when you have time, do a game with me for the community to laugh as you guys kick my ass?
I would highly suspect that neither of us would kick your ass.
I would bet money that you'd probably trounce badly. Um, it depends on time. I'm not the day job. Danny and I both have regular jobs as well as the 3D modeling and many hours. But yeah, I'm up for being trounced as time permits.
I would say I'm in the same boat. If I could make it work time wise, it would be a lot of fun.
All right. Well, I think that's good enough, and it gives something for the people to look forward to. Um, I suppose this will be, I think, my last question beyond the standard boilerplate. Where can they find you, and where can they throw money at you? What do you ultimately want the most for the Battlefleet Gothic game and the Battlefleet Gothic community?
I just want to see it keep growing the way it has over the past few years. I think it's been really cool to be involved in kind of the rekindling of a great game that was sadly abandoned by its creators. Um, we've watched this community spark back to life over the past couple of years, and it's been so amazing. And I'd just like to see that continue. More growth, more people coming in. Um, it's a great welcoming community, and it's just been amazing to see it grow like it has been.
Right. Yeah, just more. I was having a discussion with somebody in the Discord the other day. Since we began doing this 2 years ago, there are more and more and more 3D modelers creating beautiful ships. I love the left turn everyone took away from uh, wanting just, hey, I really miss this game. Someone please recreate some ships so that I can play with my friends, to, hey guys, check out my take on the fill in the blank, and to see the community grow, the artistry of the ships become so incredible. I've seen so many makers start to make so many ships. It's just, and I want to see more. I would like to get to a point where, there's so many people making ships and so many people sharing ships and sharing fleet pics and battle reports. Just grow this game beyond what anyone who created it originally could have ever thought it could be.
All right. Now, where can people find your ships, and where can people come and talk with you?
Well, we have a Discord channel, a Discord server. It's very active. I love hearing questions. We've had a lot of folks join, member or not, and the fun back and forth sharing of pictures. So on the Discord channel, I think you mentioned you were going to put a link in
Mm-hmm.
your show notes. My mini factory, we have a tribe going on where people could support us there on the tribe or purchase ships. We also have a Patreon. Um, that's the original one that's been there for a couple of years. Tribes is coming up on it, close to a year. And comics, games, and things. A lot of members of different Patreon pages. They have accounts with comics, games, and things. So we also have our main Patreon distribution through there, so people can just add to their existing libraries with our ships.
Excellent. All right. Thank you both so much for coming together and having this interview. I know your guys have a really full schedule, and making the time really is appreciated by everybody across the community. Thank you both for doing so much to help bring this game back from the abyss, too, at least from myself. Thank you
Well,
both so
thanks,
much.
thanks for having us. This has been a lot of fun, and we really do love what we do, and we want to see the continual growth of the community. So keep sharing it with your friends. If you got people that aren't into the game yet, print them a fleet. I mean, now that most of these fleets are 3D printed. It's so easy to get someone into the hobby. You just print them a handful of ships and throw them at them. It costs you nothing, and if you do it to enough people, you'll wind up with a few people to play with, I promise you.
Yeah, and you also end up teaching them how to 3D print eventually.
All right, final flash question. What's your favorite 3D printer?
Mine's my Frozen Sonic Mini 8K. It blows my mind.
My last upgrade was to the Sonic Mini 4K. And I have a running deal with my wife that I cannot purchase the next one until one of my other two. I started with a Mars Pro, the original 2K color screen. So I love the Sonic product. If I buy another printer, it will be the 8K like Danny has.
All right. Thank you both so much for coming on this interview. I have been Captain Zelnick for Navis Nobilite. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all again in the next video.